That was the game from hell. That was a Murphy's Law game for the Steelers. What could go wrong will go wrong. All the way back to the first series of the game. And then it just snowballed from there. First series, Chris Boswell missed a 58-yard field goal. When have we seen Chris Boswell miss field goals this year? I think he only missed one, and it was like 60 plus. He's been money. He's been the best kicker in the league. Misses that. That's an opportunity that we really should have capitalized on, that we needed. I mean, it really would have helped us as the game went on. Russell Wilson fumbling the ball 4 minutes before halftime. Us not converting on any of our fourth downs. 0. Meanwhile, the Browns, they go, let me get this straight. I want to make sure the game finished like this, because they were talking about how bad the Browns were at third down conversions throughout the whole game. They were 0 for. No, they actually got one. They got the one where Tomlin called the timeout on 3rd and 7 after we went back and forth on accepting or declining the 5-yard penalty. It would have either been 4th and 2 or it would have been replay the down, 3rd and 7. I didn't know what direction to go with that one. Ultimately, Tomlin went with 3rd and 7, which I guess I could get. You make the field goal that much harder. You make a potential 4th down harder if you make the stop on 3rd and 7. Maybe it would be 4th and 7 or 4th and 6. But that doesn't excuse taking the timeout before the play. We needed those timeouts just in case they converted on that 3rd down, because then you'd be giving your offense more time, because all the Browns needed was a field goal at that point. It was 19-18. All they needed was a field goal. So you needed those timeouts to stop the clock for when the Browns kick the field goal, make it so your offense has enough time to get on the field and try to make a play, try to make a game-winning drive, kick their own field goal. But ultimately, we call the timeout. We give the Browns extra time for the play, extra time to get a look and everything, draw up a play. They get it, and then they get down really close to the goal line, and we should have been trying to let them score, because the clock at that point is your worst enemy. It's not necessarily the Browns. The clock is your worst enemy. You need as many timeouts as possible. You need as much time as possible to give your offense a chance to win the game. You get a game-winning drive or game-winning field, whatever it was, whether the Browns kicked a field goal or a touchdown. But it got to a point where they were so close to the goal line, there was no chance that they were going to miss a field goal. They only needed the field goal to go up in the game. So you needed to make sure you had some time left for your offense. But unfortunately, we screwed ourselves by taking the timeout on 3rd and 7. We only had one timeout left. I'm surprised the Browns didn't need it when they were 2 yards away from the end zone. They should have just kneed it out and kicked the field goal. But Nick Chubb ends up scoring the touchdown. But the play before that, he was rolling. He was getting really close to the end zone. I'm saying, dude, just let him score. Steelers, we need to let him score. We need as much time as possible, because they could just take knees right here and kick a field goal with no time remaining. Let him score. This is an opportunity where we could at least have like a minute 30, a minute 20 left on the clock. That's our only chance to win this game. Unless you really think we're going to block a field goal, block an 18 or 19-yard field goal. Unless you think that's going to give us a better opportunity to win the game, as opposed to giving Russell Wilson the ball with a minute 20, a minute 30 left to score a touchdown. I don't know. I'd lean with the Russell Wilson thing. I think that's the smarter play. But ultimately, yes, Nick Chubb did score. We got some time on the clock, and I don't think that was due to us scheming that up or planning it up. I think the Browns were just stupid in the moment and didn't really realize that they could knee the ball out and win the game. Maybe they were concerned. Again, maybe they were really concerned about us potentially blocking a field goal, or maybe they were concerned about themselves messing up the snap or the kicker losing footing. Who knows? But the touchdown did at least give us that chance at the Hail Mary at the end. But the clock management was terrible. Absolutely terrible. This, again, was the game from hell. Now, part of it was a series of unfortunate events. As I explained, Boswell missing a field goal, us going for it on 4th down. And I don't think those plays on 4th down were necessarily good, but I think, I don't know. I think sometimes on 4th, it's just, hey, you're taking a chance here. It's 4th and short. Might be a 50-50 proposition. Both those went against us. Yes, the plays could have been better. It could have been executed better. Sure. I get it. But fourth down, 50-50 type of plays went against us. All of the fourth downs for the Browns went in their favor. Russell Wilson fumbles it. Luckily, we get a stop. Defense is on a short field. They kick a field goal and everything. But in that first half, we were dominating the game. We had the time of possession. The offense was actually moving the ball down the field. We were getting some explosive plays. But the score didn't reflect that. I didn't think we came out lackadaisical. I didn't think we came out too relaxed. In fact, I thought we came out pretty prepared because, again, the first 3 series, the offense was getting down there. They were getting in scoring position. We were in field goal range all 3 times, but we only came away with 3 points. And then the defense got stops on the first 2 series. Yeah, they gave up the 7 points on the third, but that was when the Browns converted on that, their first of fourth downs in the whole game. They converted on that. So, all right. Yeah, you got that luck in your direction there, Browns. You got the touchdown, but I didn't think it was one of those games where we came out flat. We were overlooking the opponent. It was just things didn't go our direction the first half. We were down. It was at 10-3. We were down a score. And then the second half started, and we needed to come back. But then it started snowing like it was cats and dogs out there. I know that the phrase is actually raining like cats and dogs, but it was snowing like cats and dogs. It was a blizzard. I didn't know anyone was calling for that. I didn't know anyone was predicting that type of snow up in Cleveland. I thought it was just going to be more of what we saw in the first half. Some flurries, be a cool effect on the game. But my God, I think it changed a ton for both teams. But it obviously doesn't help out the team that's trying to come back, because whenever you're trying to come back, you're wanting to pass the ball more and not waste as much clock running the ball. But anyway, it gets to that point in the second half where the snow's coming down, the Browns have momentum, they're scoring, they end up going up 2 scores. And I'm just thinking to myself, listen, if we can somehow give ourselves a chance to get back in this game, get it to 1 score, defense makes a stop, maybe we score on the next series after that and go up. Like, if we could just get to that point, because there is a way where we get back in this game. The Browns score, go up 2. I'm thinking we just need to have a really clutch drive here, score a touchdown, gets it to 1 score, and then the defense makes a stop, and then we're back in business. And that's exactly what happened. Jameis Winston, Browns, they got on the field, convert multiple 4th downs. Jameis Winston looked like freaking Elway out there at times. I didn't know scrambling out of the pocket, being actually coordinated. Jameis Winston is not a very coordinated quarterback. So for him to be moving out of the pocket the way that he did, looking down the field, evading rushers, and then throwing passes on a dime while he's moving, it was unbelievable. I didn't know Jameis Winston was able to do that. Maybe it was the snow. It might have been the snow that helped him out, because they were talking ad nauseum before the game that this was Jameis Winston's first snow game. Maybe he really responded to that, because he wasn't as good in the pocket. You saw him overthrow his target by like 5 yards, and Dante Jackson picked it off when he was just chilling in the pocket and actually had time. But I digress. Anyway, yeah, Jameis Winston, Browns, they go up the 2 scores. They drive it down on us, convert on the 4th downs, all that stuff. And we get the ball back, and by hell or high water, we were able to put that touchdown up. Fields, we get the lucky roughing the passer call. It was kind of just like a basic tackle. If this was 10 years ago, they're not even thinking about throwing a flag. But we got blessed on that. Fields also, I think it was the first or second play of that series, was able to get out of the pocket, run down the sideline for a nice 30, 40-yard gain. He was a nice spark for the offense in the second half. He was. He did some good things, also did some bad things, but I don't even think the bad things were completely his fault. I think part of it was the coaching staff putting him in these weird scenarios where it's like, man, we need to pass it here, but we're going to put Fields out there and let him pass it as opposed to Russell Wilson, who's the better passer. It just didn't make sense. But we were able to score. We were able to score a touchdown there on that drive. Jaylen Warren, I think it was when Justin Fields was in the game. He did the read option. Warren right up the middle, easy touchdown. And then the defense, right after that, gets the strip sack with Nick Herbig. We're given short field. Momentum's all in our favor. Russ throws the dime across the middle to Calvin Austin for the touchdown. All of a sudden, we're up 19-18. It was beautiful. Didn't convert on the 2-point conversion. But, man, I know a lot of people, whenever it was the third quarter, was it the third quarter? It was either end of third quarter or early 4th quarter, when we were down the 2 scores, a lot of people were just like, "Oh, game over, game over. Tomlin lost. This was trap game, all this stuff." And I was saying, listen, I know this hasn't been pretty, but I do think a lot of this has been unluckiness up to this point. It's been a series of unfortunate events. A lot of shooting ourselves in the foot, but not in the way that we're overlooking the opponent or not playing aggressively out there, not playing physical. It's just sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes a field goal happens. You don't convert on your 4th downs, and then whenever it piles up, you get the score that you get. It's not like we're a bad team or anything. It's not like we overlook the opponents. It's not like we're not trying out there. That has been the case in some Steeler games in the past. If you want to talk about trap games and going up against bad teams, that has happened. I don't think that was happening in this one when we were down 2 scores. It's just like, man, if we could somehow find a way to get back in this, maybe go up, maybe end up winning this game in this blizzard, in this just like weird element of a game. Just the fact that, we're doing stupid stuff in the first half, and then it's snowing. We're going up against this 2-8 team. If we could somehow just grit this out on a Thursday night football game, short week, and get the dub, I think it's going to say a lot more about this squad than just winning in a blowout. I get it. Like, that would have said a lot too, winning in a blowout, winning in like a defining fashion, but it takes a lot of mental toughness when things aren't going your way. The elements come into play. You're trying to come back. You're grinding. Like, to come back the way that the Steelers did, to get it to 19-18, I think that did say a lot about this team. But then we decided to dismantle that. We decided to self-destruct the last 2 series because we go up 19-18. Browns have the ball. Jameis Winston throws a pick right to Dante Jackson. We get a first down or 2 and the game's over. But we decided to get cute with it and throw Fields in there on 3rd down, a down that we're clearly passing. And it's not even like we were giving Fields really the option to run. We weren't even talking about a gadget type of play for Fields. It was like he's in shotgun and he's just going to pass it downfield. If we were going to do that, just keep Russell Wilson in. That's why I don't like this back and forth stuff with the quarterbacks, even though it did help us get back in the game. I'll admit, Fields did provide the spark. Someone said that Fields provided a spark and Russ ended up finishing it out when we went up 19-18. But didn't really finish it out completely because there was still time left on the clock and there was an opportunity for us to close it out, and we didn't do it. And then Corliss Waitman, this was just a disastrous moment. This was how I talked about the first half being a series of unfortunate events and maybe some unluckiness going against us. The last 3 minutes was just us self-imploding and tarnishing the comeback effort and just throwing it by the wayside. Because, man, we did everything we could to give that game away. That wasn't about unluckiness. That was just us being stupid. That was just us not executing. That was just us not playing well. From the moment we put Fields out there and he tried to chuck it up to Pickens on a 3rd and 5. It was a 3rd and manageable. I don't think it was a 3rd and short. It was a 3rd and manageable. From us doing that to Corliss Waitman punting it 10 yards, shanking it, giving the Browns a short field, to the timeout debacle with Tomlin at the end. We just gave our comeback effort away. It was like we put all this work in and just threw it away. Almost like, say you're working out, you're trying to be a health nut. You're trying to diet well, you're trying to be on the right path. And you're eating good things throughout the week. You're eating steak, you're eating the broccoli, you're eating vegetables, fruit, all that stuff throughout the week. And then on the weekend, you just binge eat one day. You go out for drinks, you go out, you party, and then you binge eat. You have the McDonald's, you have the junk food. All that hard work thrown away in like hours, in less than a day. You spend all that hard work throughout the course of 6 days of the week just for it to be all for naught at the end of it. That's kind of how this Steelers game went. Kind of how it went with the comeback effort in that second half. Like, all we did to try to get back in the game. how we gritted it out. We showcased that mental toughness. And then the last 3 minutes, eh, eh. Now, what does it mean for the Steelers, like, going forward? I mean, we're still in contention. We could still play with any team in the AFC. There's no reason to think we can't. This was just a weird, wacky game, man. The game from hell. Game from hell. And part of it was on us too. Like, we were the ones that made it hell too by that last sequence in the last 3 minutes. Part of it was that, and part of it was the first half, the first 2.5 quarters of just things not going our way. And then the snow coming down, all that. Like, that changes the game. Like, you're not running your normal offense. You're not running normal stuff that you would. Now, granted, this is the type of stuff you got to look for. You got to be aware of, because playoff games, they're played in cold weather stadiums. Snow could be happening. So hopefully this is a learning lesson for us, man. I didn't think we would have to deal with any more learning lessons or have to go through that, given what has happened the last couple years and the letdown games and the trap games and taking opponents for granted. And the fact that we got a Russell Wilson in-house to do with really good leadership. All the other new pieces that we brought to this team, the fresh perspectives. I didn't think we'd have to worry about that as much, but it's weird, man. I don't really, by the letter of the law, we lost this game. We lost to a 2-8 team. So, yes, trap game, Tomlin lost, whatever. I think by the letter of the law, we can call it that. Coming off of the Ravens win, we're going up against a 2-8 team like the Browns. Yeah, you could say trap game. I think it's easy to say trap game. I'm not going to even argue against it, because you just got to come out of that stadium with a win, no matter what. Even if it is an ugly win, even if the game finished 19-18, just come out of the stadium with a win. And if we would have come out with the stadium with a win, I would have been feeling great, man, because I think the comeback and getting back in this game would have said a lot, really would. And I think there is still some silver lining in there with the comeback effort, with us making it back to 19-18 and going up in the game. But yeah, it's tough, because I just think it was a wacky game in a way too. I think it was just a weird game that is a one-off, almost like an outlier. And I don't think it necessarily defines us either. You know what I mean? I don't think it defines us either way. Because if we would have won 19-18, we're still contenders, obviously. We're 9-2 then. We're in the mix for the AFC. And I think with the loss, it's the same thing. We're 8-3. We're in the mix for the AFC. We're capable of beating any of these teams. Buffalo, obviously, Baltimore, we just beat them last week. The Chiefs, we could beat any of these teams. I don't think a loss to the Browns in a blizzard on a short week necessarily means we can't compete and beat some of the top teams in this league. I don't. It's a bad look, though. Don't get me wrong. It's a bad look. That's why, if you want to say trap game, if you want to say letdown game, any of that stuff, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue against it. But I do think the context of the game matters a little bit. A little bit. Again, series of unfortunate events. First half, we were dominating them, time of possession, all that stuff. It's just missed field goal, no fourth downs, and then the blizzard changed the game in the second half. We fought back. Got to appreciate the fight back. But then we just let that go all for naught. Let me read some of these comments, man. And to even make it worse, I'm seeing some Myles Garrett comments in the chat. To even make it worse, Myles Garrett had a big game and TJ Watt was a no-show. So there's that. That's just salt on the wound right there. Didn't need that. Didn't need that, particularly after this ugly-ass loss. Duran says, context of the game that matters is we just lost to a 2-8 team. That's why I'm not going to argue, man. We just don't lose the game. Just don't lose the game to the Browns. Don't lose the game to a 2-8 Browns team either. Just don't lose. What Al Davis say back in the day? Just win, baby. They just win. Just win. Because if we finish that game 19-18, I think the energy is so much different. But that's in the moment. Remember, that's in the moment. Because I don't think the energy should change as we get further removed from this game. Let's not act like we can't still compete. We're not a playoff contender. But in the moment, yeah, I think we'd be really pumped up. We'd be talking about how, oh man, this is just Steeler ball. We just find ways to win. But it didn't happen, and it was due to our own demise and our own decision making and our own play. Really, we have no one to blame but ourselves. With how those last 3 minutes went, with how those last 3-4 minutes went, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Like, we deserve to lose with how we handled those last 3-4 minutes. Everything before that, I think I could be making excuses for. I could. But we ultimately came back. We were up 19-18. That's the thing. Like, you came back. You're in control now. You're in the lead. Finish out the game. No excuses. No excuses. We could talk about the excuses. We could talk about the misfortunes. But once you take the lead, excuses are out the window. Now close out the deal. Winning time. And we didn't do that. We definitely didn't do that. Coffee Cup says, why didn't they throw the flag on the pass interference on Pickens? I'm not even going to front. Which one? There was actually a couple that a flag could have been thrown. The refs, I thought, actually did a decent job in not throwing flags this game. As weird as that sounds. Because there was one Pickens play down the sideline where looked like the feet got tangled a little bit. But then I think I'm guessing you're talking about the one that Fields threw to him. I don't know if the ball was catchable. I don't know if that was Pickens just slipping, because when they showed the replay, it really didn't look like Emerson did anything. Like, if Emerson pushed him, or you could clearly see he didn't look around for the ball, and I guess was kind of in Pickens' line of sight, kind of in Pickens' way. I don't think it was a bad no call. I would have liked the call. I would have maybe understood the call. I would have been for it for sure. Josh Wild 16 asks, why is hold on one second. Why is Cordell Patterson getting playing time? He looks big and slow. The snow might have had something to do with that, but I get your point. Like, we threw the pass to him on second, the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, and he's on the outside. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we doing that with Cordell Patterson? Isn't this the type of play we brought in Mike Williams for? So I'm with you in a way. I am. I definitely am. Like, the one outside run he had down in the red zone, I don't know why he just didn't, like, cut it upfield. I think he could have gained an extra, like, 5 or 6 yards. Instead, he just played it slow and stayed horizontally as opposed to kicking it up vertically. Jay Johnson, 26, reiterates my point. Says, a team with Mike Williams and Pickens, and we threw Cordell Patterson a jump ball. Exactly. Chelson, I was saying this throughout the game. He says Najee didn't have a normal 2024 Najee game. Yeah, when it started snowing in the second half, Najee didn't look right. He didn't have his snow tires on. And you know what that reference is to. 2005, Jerome Bettis, Chicago Bears at home, snowing down just like it was in this game. But the bus had his snow tires on. The bus went off for like 100-some yards. And Najee he didn't look like he was ready for the snow or knew how to run in the snow. He kind of got slower and more indecisive, whereas Jaylen Warren, I felt like he got a little bit better. Or at least he provided that spark that Najee wasn't giving us in the second half in the snow. And this is not a knock on Najee. Trust me. This is not. This isn't, because I think he's been playing really good for us, but he didn't look right. Part of that was the O-line too. I don't think our O-line was great in run blocking today. I don't think they were that bad in pass blocking. I don't think they were as bad as some people were trying to give them credit for in pass blocking. Sometimes Russ just was holding on the ball a little bit too much. And I don't know if that was a Russ thing. He wasn't reading the defense right, or no one was open. But again, we got to see some moments with Russ where the playmaking wasn't completely there, like we saw in the first 3 games. He looked a little bit like he did last week, which was more like Denver Russ as opposed to Seattle Russ. And we were talking about Russ's first 3 games being more like vintage Russ and how he's playing with the Seahawks. But he still played good, bro. If you look at Russ's stat line, like he had the would-be game-winning touchdown pass to Calvin Austin to go up 19-18. And finished 21 of 27 for 270 yards and a touchdown. He couldn't have been that bad, right? He really couldn't have been that bad with a 120.7 QB rating. So I think Russ had a good game. Fields, he had his moments. He had his spark. We don't score that touchdown to get it within one score without Fields. That was the Fields drive, really. He had the long run down the sideline, got us the roughing the passer penalty, and then he was in for the Jaylen Warren touchdown doing the read option. So Fields did good things. I don't think we're putting Fields in the best of positions all the time when we get him in there. But maybe that's just what you're going to get when you throw Fields in, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of the rotating quarterback stuff, because it's just a shot in the dark. It's like these ups and downs of let's throw him in there. It's who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? It's either going to be an explosive play or it might be a negative play. And that's what we've been getting, because sometimes Fields is in there. The defense doesn't think he's a threat to pass, so we do a QB draw or we do a run with him, and it just feels so obvious. But then other times he's a dynamic playmaker. He's got the legs. He can do some stuff. And it works out. But again, I feel like I'm old school, but I would rather go down with Russ making that pass on third down as opposed to Fields. Now, I do think when Fields is in there, we should give him more options as opposed to just running, so it's not as obvious. Like we should maybe have some pass options for him, but make it that he's making that decision on the fly as opposed to before the snap, shotgun, we're definitely passing. Okay, if we're doing that, just have Russ in then. Russ is the better passer. Why are we throwing Fields in on a third and something and you're passing? If you know you're passing, just have Russ. I can go down with I could live with that. Russ in the fourth quarter and his decision making. I'm good with that. Now, if you're throwing Fields in there, it's the RPO, and he's going to decide on the fly, run, or he rolls out, and you give him some passing options out. That's a different story, completely different story. But that wasn't the case on that last third down when we were on offense. What else we got in the chat, man? Nixterdamus says, Fields in, heavy set package, and obvious run. Yep. That's exactly what I'm saying. Some of it's worked. Some of it hasn't, though. We missed the fourth down on it. We got negative yards down in the red zone on it. But then we score a touchdown with Jaylen Warren. Fields makes an explosive play where he runs for like 35 yards, flips the field for us. So there's just ups and downs. There's more of what would you say? I don't know. There's more of I guess an inconsistency with it. So you do get good, but you are getting some bad and feels like wasted plays. Football 101 says no screen passes. Why? It's a perfect night for it. There weren't too many. I can remember a Darnell Washington one, but you're kind of right. Yeah, screen passes. Because I feel like you throw a screen pass, the defense is going to be flat-footed in that snow. And you're the one that's rolling downfield. You're the one that's going to have blockers with the momentum. It's not a bad call. It's not a bad point. But ultimately, here's the thing. That's not what lost us the game. The last 3 minutes lost us the game. Defense not getting the stop, the waste of the timeouts, Corliss Waitman punting it 10 yards and having Justin Fields out there to pass it down the field on a third and manageable. I think that's what lost us the game. Because ultimately, even though we didn't do many screen passes throughout the course of the game, we were up 19-18. And with the ball, with like 3-4 minutes left, after Dante Jackson picked off Jameis Winston. Like, that's insane. I wonder what the percentage is. Let me see. Is there a way I'm not going to be able to find it right now. But I wonder what the win percentage chance was in that moment for the Steelers. They have at this point in the game, it was 90% chance the Steelers were going to win, or at this point in the game, it was X percent chance the other team was going to win. I wonder what it was for the Steelers. I would have guessed it had to have been over 90. It had to have been. Nick Stradamus also says, I feel like the defense against mediocre teams on last-minute drives have found a way to fail us. Browns and Cowboys. Browns and Cowboys. Those are the two examples I can think of. But to the defense's credit, they also do find ways to make the stops in critical moments. And today was another example about it. It's just that they had to do it again. They got the pick. They got the strip sack late in the game. They made the big time stops, and we go up. But little did they know they would have to go out on the field for one more time. And they weren't able to get the stops then. Weren't able to. Really unfortunate. But a lot of the other times, and a lot of the other games, Commanders game, Ravens game, Jets game, Giants game, even at the end, I was not happy with how the game ended with Danny Dimes having a chance down 8 to string a final drive together to tie it up. But they made the stop. They got the pick. Like, so you got to give the defense credit, but this goes back to what I was saying before the Ravens game and why I felt a certain way about the defense and that they weren't living up to the potential. They were sketchy at times, even though I think I was satisfied because they were making some of these critical stops. There were just some leaky moments. There was just too much inconsistency and too many gash plays, particularly against, like you're saying here, bad teams or players that we don't even know their name, like the running back for the Giants, Tracy. We gave up how many yards against them? $140 or something like that. Just ridiculous. So that's the thing. I don't know how to feel, man. Yeah, I think the defensive performance, they didn't necessarily keep the vibes rolling from last week because there were a lot of plays we got bailed out too. We gave up the 24. We gave up the game-losing touchdown drive. But there were a lot of wide open drops from these Browns players too that could have maybe even been worse. Hell, the one actually, I think it was on the last drive. Remember I was talking about we wanted the Browns to score? We might as well have had to do it. Was a dude wide open. It was a tight end. It wasn't Njoku. I think it was Atkins. He's wide open, had all the field in front of him, dropped it. But if he would have scored, that would have given our offense a ton of time. We would have still had our timeouts at that point. It would have been like 2 minutes left, 2:30 left on the clock. So maybe we actually wanted him to catch that. As weird as it sounds, but Browns had a bunch of drops throughout the game. Njoku had one. I think they ended up scoring a touchdown on that anyway. So maybe ball don't lie there, but just a dumb game, man. Just a stupid game. Game from hell, however you want to describe it. You don't feel good about it now, but the nuanced take on this is we still have a chance. We have just as good of a chance as any other of these top teams in the AFC. I'm telling you, the further we get removed from it, we win next week. Who are we even playing next week? Is it Bengals? We win next week. We're 9-3. We're fine. We're definitely fine. Snow had a factor in this. This is an outlier type of game. What other games have we played this year where a blizzard happens in the second half? Or even if you want to stick with the first half too, where you're dealing with that type of wind, that type of even though it wasn't a lot of snow in the first half, that type of snow and all that wind. I think they were saying it was like 28 miles per hour. Outlier type of games. But again, once you get later in the season, these games do become a little bit more prominent, a little bit more expected, just because the weather gets worse. And we might be dealing with something like this in the playoffs. But up to this point in the season, this is just like that one random game with the inclement weather. It's a neutralizing factor. It definitely is. It enables the team that is not as good or the team that's not as favored to have a better chance. I mean, go back to last year. Remember our wild card game against the Bills? There was a reason we wanted it to be in the snow. That would have neutralized Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. We were a run-heavy team. And we were hurting a little bit in the linebacker unit, hurting a little bit in the secondary. So we would have liked to play in the snow, would have neutralized some things. And I think that's what happened here. But ultimately, again, we got to the point where we were up 19-18 and no excuses. Be better down the stretch. Don't be doing stuff to implode. Don't be doing stuff to just throw away all the hard work that you did to come back in the game. Just with like a snap of a finger. That's what it felt like. Again, we did everything right. It was tough sledding. We showed that grit to come back. And then boom. Lost it all just like that. Ton of bad decisions. Ton of bad plays. That's it, guys. I don't know what else we got to talk about here. Just an ugly game. Just brutal. I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say, really. Calvin Austin had a good game. Give him that. We need to see Mike Williams more, though. Definitely need to see Mike Williams more. Freiermuth has one of his best games this year. 4 receptions, 59 yards. Give credit to Deshaun Elliott. He keeps balling out. Dante Jackson, that's his 4th pick of the year. I'd like to see those guys in Pro Bowl, All-Pro conversations. Because you know about the stars on our defense. You know about PQ. You know about JPJ, TJ, Minka, Cam. But Deshaun Elliott and Dante Jackson, the new guys from this offseason, they've been arguably our most consistent players out there. But all right, guys, I'm out of here. Bad loss. And if we're calling it a trap game, I'm not going to argue against it. Just bad, man. Just bad. Stay chilling, everyone. Peace.